Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I hope y'all are having a fantastic day today. And in today's video, we are finally doing a review of Demon's Souls Remake. It has been quite some time. I'm still working on trying to get my computer fixed. So I'm editing this whole thing on my PlayStation, which is actually turning out to be a lot more difficult than I thought. At least compared to my computer, which was always really nice to edit stuff. But yeah, I finished this game probably, oh geez, it's probably been at least a month or so now. And I was really hoping that, like I said, my computer would be fixed so that I can get this done on that because it's so much easier, and yeah, editing on the PlayStation has been difficult. But yeah, this is a fantastic game. I just love Demon's Souls so much. This originally came out, and I want to say like 2001. This is the remake. I never played the original on the PS3. I've only played this remake, and I'm just gonna kind of go through the things that I really liked about it, and then we'll go into the things that I didn't. Actually, you know what? We're gonna do it the other way around. No, we'll do pros first. We'll do pros first. So first off, as you guys can see, the game looks freaking beautiful. The graphics look so good. It just looks amazing. Like, at least compared, I mean, not even at least, just in general, the game looks awesome. Now, if you compare it to how it looked when it first came out, it is totally, I mean, it's a remake, it's not a remaster, so they totally redid this game from the ground up, and it just is beautiful. There's so many times where you're just going through and I'm like, man, I can't wait for some of the next From Software games, because this is literally the best looking From Software game to date. And this was actually, I mean, it was originally made by From Software, but it was remade by Blue Point Studio Games. So yeah, that was just one thing that you just immediately see right off the bat before you start getting into the story, before you start getting into fighting all these enemies, is that the game just looks beautiful. It looks amazing. The next thing that I really liked, and this is just a thing that I've liked with a lot of From Software games, is that the combat is always really fun. It's really simple. You just, beat the enemies with your axe or with your sword. But with the combat, they added like these really cool backstabs that you can get behind enemies. I didn't actually record any footage of that. I wish I did. But with editing on the PlayStation being as annoying as it was, I just kind of went with what I had. But yes, the backstabs, they have like this cool little animation. It looks super awesome. And also when you get off a parry, the parries also look super cool. I mean, I really like the parries in this game. I wasn't a very big person to parry in some of the other like Dark Souls or even Bloodborne, really. I did a little bit in Bloodborne, but this one, because it had the cool animation, it made me want to learn how to parry. And yeah, so that the combat is just really fun. I always enjoy the combat in these games. It is difficult. Out of all the games, I would say Demon's Souls is the easiest of all the From Software type games. But if you're a newcomer, it'll still be fairly difficult to pick up and figure it out, because everything, if you're not careful, can one-shot you. As this dragon basically just punched me in the face and I almost died anyway. But yeah, combat, super fun. I really liked it. Another thing that's really cool in this one that I did enjoy was the customization. Though I don't really get too much into character customizations, just because you don't really see your character's face as much, especially if you're wearing helmets and armor and stuff like that. So I never really cared too much, but I did appreciate that it looks 1,000 times better than anything we've had in any From Software game. It looks great. Another thing that I really enjoyed was the boss fights, as a lot of this footage in this video is mainly the boss fights. I just had fun. I always have fun in the boss fights in any From Software game. They're always so fun. A lot of these bosses look really intimidating. Like right here, the Penetrator just looks freaking awesome. He reminds me a lot of Artorias from Dark Souls 1, just minus the part that I beat him first try. I beat almost all of these bosses in Demon's Souls first try. I think there was only a few that bested me, and it was because I was trying to get, the trophy associated with them, like I know Tower Knight took me at least 3 tries to beat because I kept getting shot by arrows, and one of the trophies is defeat the Tower Knight without, you know, getting hit by any, or not getting hit, but without killing any of the archers. Yeah, so the boss fights, super fun. I enjoyed pretty much all of them. I think there was only... No, yeah, I think I did enjoy all of them. The only one that was pretty disappointing, especially as a new player to Demon Souls, was the Dragon God. I thought it was going to be much more epic, but it was basically, you know, shoot these... I guess that kind of goes into a con. We'll go into that a little bit later, but yeah, it was real kind of a... You know, you smack these big old arrow things, and then he gets like pinned to the wall, and then you go smack his chin, and he dies. I thought it was going to be a lot more epic, a lot more fun. I mean, it was very cool and cinematic-like, but probably my least favorite of the boss fights. Another thing that I really liked, I'm trying to kind of do this a little bit in the video so you guys can see, is that a lot of the areas in Demon Souls were super diverse, and I really, really like that. I mean, I know Dark Souls 1 was like that too, like you can go to different areas, but I don't know. And it's probably also because this is a remake, so a lot of the colors are bright and vibrant, and so it just really sticks out a lot more than, you know, some of the previous From Software games. For instance, like Bloodborne, the whole game is really dark for the most part. There's a few areas that, you know, are a little bit lighter, but for the most part it's pretty dark. But in Demon Souls, you got like this place here, I think this is a Tower of Lataria, and it's very dark, very gloomy, very Bloodborne type-ish vibe. And then when we were fighting the Penetrator is Boletaria, and it's very bright, it's middle of the daytime. Yes, there's dragons and all this chaos happening, but like you could see what's happening. So I really enjoyed like the diversity in the areas. It was really fun. I really enjoyed that. Another thing that I really enjoyed was that certain enemies are like weak to certain things, and I know that's not really a new thing, because I know, like, you know, some enemies are really weak to fire, and some are, you know, like Bloodborne had some that were weak to fire and some electricity. But it was just kind of weird. This one was like they're weak to the shape of the weapon, and I kind of like that. Like in the second Archstone, you fight like these tunnel dudes, like Stone Fang Tunnel. And they are impervious, or they're super weak to sharp. I can't draw on the blank on what it's actually called. Basically, weapons that have a point to bleed, I guess. And so, like, if you're using an axe on them, which I did several times because I was upgrading my crescent axe, I want to say it was. And it just wasn't doing as much damage. Yeah, you're hurting them, but then you get like the Crescent Falchion sword that was very good weapon to use throughout the game, and it did super awesome. It, you know, would kill them, and I don't know. It was kind of a little thing that I just really, really enjoyed, the way that they did that. So those are like the big bulk of the things that I really enjoyed. I also really enjoyed the story. Just like any other From Software game, a lot of the story is... I mean, it gave you like a big glimpse of like what's... I guess the setting of what's happening in the game. At the very beginning, cutscenes and stuff like that. But I really enjoyed that. I don't know, I kind of like that. It's like a mystery, and I'm trying to solve the mystery that like not all of the story is given to you right away, and that you find out as you're playing what's going on, and, you know... And that's a lot like this story, which is kind of falls suit to how From Software did the rest of their games. Dark Souls is like that. Everything's pretty vague, and you put piece things together as you go through the game. And I always really like that. I guess it makes it not as linear, you know, like, so you know what's happening. And don't get me wrong, there's some really great games that I think are fantastic. That it's a pretty straightforward story, but I do like the aspect of discovering things as we go throughout the game. New story, new, like, why is this happening? So I really enjoyed that. Now, going into the things that I particularly didn't like, as with all my other videos, I kind of give like a pros and cons. The cons for this list, for this game, aren't very much. Surprisingly, I love pretty much everything about this game. But the thing that I didn't necessarily like as much, kind of going with the boss fights, is that I love the boss fights. And even in the game, the boss fights in this were fun. But as you can see, like, I'm fighting the Storm King right here, and I basically take out a third of its health. A lot of these bosses have like gimmicks to them. Like if you do a certain thing, the boss is just super weak to it. Like we're just fighting the Storm King, and it's kind of very similar to Yorm the Giant in Dark Souls 3. And even this, the Dirty Colossus that we're fighting here, is super weak to fire, and so you just throw fire on your weapon, and look how much damage this does. Let's see. Boom. Like, look at that. That is crazy. And a lot of bosses were like this, that they could have been hard, but once you figure out, like, I call them gimmicks, I guess the kryptonite for the boss, once you figure it out, which it's not very hard, because the game... Okay, going off. Once you figure it out, all the bosses you basically cheese the boss. I basically cheesed every single boss without, like, intentionally doing it. The game sets you up because even in this, when you're fighting the Dirty Colossus, it gives you, you find a lot of, what's it called, black pine resin or red pine resin to light your blade on fire. So it almost is like, a lot of the enemies are weak to this, and the bosses are no different. Even this one, Madame Estrella, I think this is her. Like, once you beat, like, you could even cheese her by just shooting her from afar, with arrows. Because one of the achievements is to kill her without killing that knight dude, and you could just stand up on top and just rain arrows down on her. And actually, that NPC guy in the boss was literally the hardest part of that boss fight. But yeah, so a lot of the bosses just had a lot of cheese things to him. I mean, even the Tower Knight, you smack its heels a bunch of times and he falls over, like Achilles heel type thing, and then you just go and smack him on the head. And so that was one thing that I didn't necessarily like as much, because some of the bosses that I liked in the Souls games that came after Demon Souls, because this is a remake, and Bloodborne and even Dark Souls, like, you can find things that they're weak against, but then you also have to, like, memorize their fight pattern. You gotta, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot more to it than just equipping fire to your blade and just beating the crap out of them. And so, but with that said, I mean, that was the only thing that I kind of didn't necessarily like. There's a few bosses that you couldn't really cheese, like Old King Alant that we're fighting here. I didn't really find anything that, like, took a ton of health from him. I still beat him first try, but equipping the fire to my blade just did a little bit more damage. That, and I'm using the Dragon Bone Smasher, so it just does friggin' massive damage anyway. Going into the next thing that wasn't a big fan of, especially since Demon Souls Remake was my first time ever playing this title, like I said, never played it on the PS3, was the world tendency. I was a bit confused by it at first, and then once I kind of figured out what it was, I mean, it was kind of already too late, that, like, dying in human form, which I'm playing right now against O King Alant in this part, is that you can see I'm in human form, and that if you die, it actually affects the world tendency of that archstone. There's the 5 archstones, and the more you die in human form, the more it turns either to white or black. Now, dying in human form turns it towards black, which makes the enemies have more health and they hit harder. So basically, dying is like punishment, and it makes the game harder to play. And that was something that I think it's a cool concept, but I just think it's kind of hard, especially since this is a hard game. I just feel like that was pretty brutal. I mean, this being basically the last From Software game, I've literally played all of them from, Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, Sekiro, Bloodborne. I've played them all. And if any of those games had the punishment of the world tendency, oh my gosh, that would make the game so much harder. At least I feel like, because those games are even harder anyways than Dark Souls. Or, sorry, not Dark Souls, Demon Souls. But yeah, it was one thing that I didn't particularly like. And I guess if you get the world to pure white, you do more damage, which is cool. But you have to basically beat things, kill evil NPCs, black phantoms, and whatnot. So the world tendency was something that was a little bit confusing, and by the time you figure it out, it's already too late. Another thing that I wasn't particularly fond of, because once I figured out, going along with this world tendency, once I kind of figured out what it was, I figured out that if you stay in soul form, which is basically your ghosty, that if you die, it doesn't affect the world tendency, or doesn't negatively affect it, I should say. If you beat NPCs and bosses, every time you beat a boss, it does turn the world towards white, but, going through the game, if you don't want to affect your world tendency, you have to, especially for a new player, I would say go in soul form. It cuts like half your health off. So that's like kind of the drawback to it, is that you literally only have like half your health. Even despite like leveling it up, there's a ring that will give you like a little bit more, health as you go through the game. But if you're leveling up your health and you're in soul form, you still basically have half, which wasn't too bad. But for like new players, especially since this is a brand new title, launch title for the PS5, there's probably a lot of players that are playing this type of game for the first time. And so something like that I feel like would be a little bit tough. But those were like the things that, I just didn't particularly like. They weren't even that bad. Like once the world tendency, once I figured it out, it wasn't too bad. Just went through the game in soul form, and even the bosses, like, even though you could cheese them, they were still fun. They were still super cinematic, like the beginning parts, and they were just like nitpicky things that thankfully got kind of dropped in the, like when they made Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2 and 3 and even Bloodborne, is that they kind of totally got rid of world tendency and soul form. And then some bosses, yeah, you could cheese in those earlier or the later games, but not all of them. But yeah, I had a ton of fun with this game. Now, if I were to give my review out of 10 for this game, I'd give it a 9. I'd give it a 9 out of 10. I freaking love this game so much. It was fun. Despite some of the flaws that I had, and never playing the original, this was a beautiful game. Combat was fun. The whole game was fun. It was a very fun game. 9 out of 10 for me. I'm actually going through on my third playthrough, trying to get the trophies for it. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching the video, and I hope you guys have a good day. We'll see you later.